who am I without my healing journey? What is a good life? And it's so simple. And it's the little simple things that Jannick just shared. Just looking into the eyes of your partner, hanging out with your friends and laughing, and all these beautiful but simple experiences are actually what make a good life. And I find that really touching.
That is very related to being authentic, because if you can't set boundaries, if you can't stand up for yourself, you can't say no, that's when you can't be authentic. And that's when you live the life of others, like they say they regret, because you're like, I'm too afraid to get rejected ultimately, to stand up for myself and live an authentic life. Welcome to the Spiritual Bypassers podcast today with Jannick and Tim. Explanation follows in a few seconds. And today we had an exciting episode. We talked about the top 5 regrets of the dying. What are people actually really concerned with when they are dying? And there's so much to learn from this. We were talking about meaning, how to create meaning in our lives, talking about the reasons why we are not fulfilling our needs and what we need to do in order to be able to do that and not be the person who regrets these 5 things when they are dying. And you will notice that we got only to the first 2 of those 5 points. So in the next episode, you will find out the rest. But yeah, this one is just, Tim called it a beacon of meaning in this time. And there was so much out of this, one of our favorite episodes. There's so much value in this, so much you can learn. So hope you are excited as we are, and wish you a lot of fun. Enjoy the episode.
So, welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Bypassers podcast. Today with Jannick.
Yes, that's me.
Yeah, say hi. Yeah. And Tim.
And
Hi.
Ashley, right?
And Ashley, but Ashley's only here in spirit because her spirit is kind of leaving her body as we speak because she's sick. She's not able to be here physically, but obviously spiritually she's more than present within our hearts, within our bodies, within our minds. She's battling a lung disease, I think
I can't pronounce it. Lungenentzündung in German.
pneumonia,
Pneumonia.
pneumonia, and
Infection of her lungs.
yes. Interestingly enough, it started after last week's episode where I wasn't present. I was obviously also present in spirit, but it started last week after Jannick and Ashley had a process, I heard, around sadness. And interestingly enough, sadness, that's also what we learned in emotional release work and in traditional Chinese medicine, the lungs are holding the emotion of sadness and grief. So it's super interesting that you guys worked with sadness and grief, and then afterwards, without you directly working on the lung started to activate and started to process something. And even now, a week after, Ashley is still, in that. So we wish Ashley all the best, so she gets well soon. And obviously, we know that this is a holistic growth process that is happening most probably, and yeah.
Yeah, and I like to
amazing.
combine it. Like, I don't like to see it like black and white. Many people say, oh, maybe it was just cold in winter and people get, lung infections. And that is true as well. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. Usually it's a combination of many things. Maybe she didn't rest well. Maybe she went out to party. Maybe she was riding her bike, her new e-bike. That is a true story. She has a new e-bike now, leaking information here that I don't know I should, or
Top
I'm
secret.
allowed to, but that's fine. And maybe she wasn't wearing a scarf, so now, the lungs got cold. But there's always reasons why these things happen. And it's like a huge interplay of many different things. And one of the reasons can be that her lungs were open to process something after our session as well. So it fits very well. And it's so interesting that, yes, in theory, it makes sense, right? Over thousands of years, people thought, okay, this chest area, the heart area, the lungs, this is where sadness and grief are being processed. and but still it's all like a bit theoretically, and maybe it works, but really like minutes, hours after our session, her lungs already started to work, she started coughing a bit, she started feeling a bit off in this area. And so there is such a direct relation between our physical symptoms and our emotional blockages. And yeah, I just want to emphasize that please work on your emotions. Please do emotional work, because this is the main thing that keeps our bodies stuck sometimes. The body keeps the score for all of those unprocessed emotions. And if symptoms get worse after sessions, that can be a really good sign, because that can be the body finally clearing out what needs to be cleared out. So a lot of times when we do sessions, when our teachers did sessions, they had first like an increase in the symptoms, and then afterwards it went away.
Hmm. Interesting. And Jannick and I, prior to the episode, had a little moment of accidentally sharing life hacks. And I have, maybe it's going to be, I think it's going to be, you have to, you know, you don't take us too seriously. But we have a few life hacks combined, lined up for you that serve you in your embodied health that are maybe a bit under the radar. Some may not be, but at least they help us. And Yannick bought himself a gadget that improves his life
Ceramic
a lot.
infrared
It's a little
beamer
book. It's a
light.
little manual of a red light therapy lamp. Look at this. He can read there's so much knowledge in this little book, isn't it?
By the way, this
No, it's
is
a
not
red
an
light
ad, and
lamp.
we don't get paid for any of this. And
No.
there's no product placement. This is a product placement, but we don't get paid for it. And I don't know much about this. I received it yesterday and I tried it today, and I had some life hackers, those
The
people
good old
you
life
know,
hackers.
those people who hack everything, who hack
Everything.
their
They hack
health.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, they hack their health. And I
They
spoke
hack
to
their
some of those
fridge,
people,
their bathroom,
and
their
they
whole
they
life. Their
recommended,
grandma.
Tim, let's get serious.
Uh, okay.
Um, this this was recommended, and so I'm trying it out now. And this morning, with like I took it into my bed, and I used it for just 5 minutes, and it felt like a little sun bath, which is amazing during winter in Germany, when, as you can see, it's just gray. If you're watching this on
Same
YouTube.
here.
So yeah, this is great. I have experience of 1 day, so don't take me too seriously, but you can, I'm sure you can do some research on it, and I'm convinced. This is my life hack of the day. Maybe we should make this a thing. One life hack an
Life hack
episode.
of the day.
Yeah.
I like that. Also, Yannick is healed now, as you can see. His healing journey is officially over. The red light cured him. He has a big smile on his face. Everything is all right. I have a life hack. I have two, like one is, everybody does it, but I want to emphasize this. In the winter, cold showers are insanely cold because obviously it's cold outside and the pipes and stuff are getting cold. Don't quote me on that. But the cold showers that I take currently, I do 5 minutes. I set a timer, 5 minutes for the warm shower, 5 minutes for the cold one. And it's just, I feel like a completely new human being. I feel like my bathroom is becoming the womb or the ashes where the phoenix is rising every morning. I emerge out of the bathroom a different man, healed as well. I have no trauma
He's a
left.
man of
All
big
trauma
words and
just
symbols.
escaped through the sink. Um, so no, like seriously, cold showers are one of the best things you can do for your body that is completely free and saves you a lot of stress. Like sometimes I wake up super groggy and super like, what the fuck is this? Just like a truck hit my face, and then I go under the cold shower, and all of this evaporates. I feel a lot of energy, and it feels amazing. And then I drink my ginger lemon drink, and I recently found out that you can buy ginger juice and lemon juice and I just buy it, and it's so comfortable to just pour it into your little water bottle, and you have 1 liter to 1.5 liters, however much your bottle fits, of very healthy, very rejuvenating water that you can just drink. And
Okay,
if you
but what's
do
the
all of,
recipe? What's the recipe? How many milliliters of each substance?
I play it by ear, so I don't know. I just trust my gut feeling. It's more lemon juice than ginger juice because ginger juice can be really extreme.
Really
Um,
gingerous?
Gingerous.
Hmm?
So
That was a
yeah.
sad smile. That was
Yeah.
okay.
I had a dream about it. I had a dream about becoming a ginger. I had a dream where I met like a higher self part of me, and I had red, like I had my head was shaved and there were red hairs red hair was growing out of my head, and I was telling this part of like this part in the dream, this character in the dream about it, and he was rather. And I also told him I killed 5 people on the street with a gun, and he was like, "What the fuck? Who is this? Who is this red haired guy all of a sudden? Why is he talking to me like that?" Yeah, but that's just a side note.
Yeah, put that into
Oh,
ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it with the tools of Carl Jung. This is what I recommend to all of you. This is a game changer. You dream something, you put it into ChatGPT, you ask it to analyze with Carl Jung, and you will be amazed by the results.
yeah, I also use ChatGPT to analyze my dreams. There's a book called Inner Work by Robert Johnson. Do I have it here? I have it somewhere. It's I think like it's one of the best books on very practical method of dream reading, and I combine this with ChatGPT as well. Um, so yeah, like Sigmund Freud said, dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. I would add to that that the body and emotions are also a royal road to the unconscious, but working with your dreams can completely change your life. We can maybe have a separate episode about that at some point because it's fascinating. Like in the it's amazing to unlock that door and to really understand that dreams are just a representation, a symbolic representation of what is going on within you that you don't know about. And that's to me is mind blowing. That every morning we have the chance to just look into our subconscious and learn lessons that our soul, our self, whatever is composing these dreams wants us to learn. So it's amazing. It's also a bit underrated, I feel, in whatever spaces we like. Nobody talks about dreams, even though it's so incredibly helpful to work with your dreams. It's amazing. I'm
Mhm.
a big fan.
I can tell,
But
Tim.
I have a lot of energy. That comes from the cold shower. I can tell you that. And also from seeing my good friend Jannick, because we haven't recorded a podcast in ages. And I hope next week we're back together, the three of us.
Yes.
I
So
was
let's
asking
get,
myself,
yes, exactly. Let's get into the topic of today's episode.
yes. So I wanna introduce this topic with a thought that I had. And that thought is, what is a healthy human being? Like in somatic and trauma and whatever personal development areas, we talk a lot about what symptoms there are, what ways to heal there are, and yeah, like we talk a lot about what keeps us from being whole, or what keeps us from becoming whole, and how to overcome that. What I asked myself recently is, what makes a healthy human being? Like, when is the healing journey that so many people think they have to complete, or whatever? When do we reach a point where it's enough? And I found myself in the past weeks, and that's really good news, because I'm on this journey and still I'm on it. I don't think there's a definite destination, but I think in the past weeks I come to a point where I'm really happy with my life and with myself. And I just asked myself, when is it enough, and what is a healthy human being? And to make the transition um, to what we want to talk about, there's 5 things that people regret when they are on their deathbed. So 5 needs that were left unfulfilled. And I have a theory that if we take these things seriously, and if we fulfill these needs, and if we live by the things that most people regret, and they or think do the things they haven't done, then we live a more healthy life, and then we live a more wholesome life. So we want to talk about the 5 regrets of the dying today, and I want to just ask you, Yannick, like before we dive into the 5 regrets and the needs behind it and the whole story, what do you think is a healthy person, and how does what I just talked about resonate with you?
Mhm. Yeah, it resonates a lot. And this is why I love the idea of, talking about those things that people regret, but then we might also be able to bring in our knowledge about why, if maybe it's obvious to do some of the things, but people still don't. So let's also talk about what's in the way, because I think a lot of those things are actually something we do naturally. I'm actually like really convinced everything that's good and healthy for us is something we inherently want to do, that's inherently inside of us. It just makes sense if you have a need to go for it, to go fulfill your needs. And then there's a blockage, and there's something that we have learned based on fear, shame, guilt, other things that hold us back from authenticity, that prevents us from doing that. So I love to bring those two concepts together, all the things we know about emotional repression with the things that people regret later on in their lives. And yeah, I'm really excited because a lot of times I see it in therapy as well. There is the issue of over focus on the negative, over focus on the problems. And in order to balance that, it's important to talk about what to do as well, not only about what to remove, what not to do, what icky feelings to avoid and how to, but also about like what can we actually do to bring in the joy and this feeling of content and being fulfilled, having our needs fulfilled. So I'm curious to find out about that.
Yes, and to me, really, this question came up when I read Abraham Maslow, and he said, obviously everybody knows about the hierarchy of needs and this pyramid, and he said that a person cannot spiritually evolve or fulfill higher needs if the basic needs are not met. So if I'm, for example, when it comes to when a safety needs, when trauma occurs, for example, and I'm in a place of unsafety for my whole life, or um, I'm deprived of my need for nourishment in the form of food or whatever safety needs there are. If these are not fulfilled, you cannot go into the what he calls self actualization process. And there are needs that was so interesting, that when they get fulfilled, they don't lessen the symptom, but they increase something. For example, if you have a need for love, and you somebody gives you love, there is it's not like your hunger is satiated and you're back to normal. It's like you get love, and your capacity to hold love and to spread out love and give love back just increases. Same with creativity, or with yeah, I can't recall them fully, but just the concept that there's needs when they get fulfilled, there's more of you there, and it's not just, oh, now I can relax, but oh wait, I'm inspired actually, and I feel like this whole world is opening up, and I feel like I'm becoming something more than myself. Is super interesting, and that was for me when I was like, ah, okay, so there's basic needs that also therapy is about fulfilling these basic needs and also uncovering them. And then when the needs are fulfilled, like when I have a baseline of safety, of, my also systemically, I live in a place that is relatively safe, and I have food, and I have my relationships are okay, and things like this. How does that feel like, and what becomes possible then? That was sort of the question, or how I got to the question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, talking about needs like that. And what I want to add is, the hierarchy of needs by Maslow, it looks very simple, and it's like, okay, we fulfill that and that and that and that, and then we can like go up the ladder. But I want to add in maybe some complexity that is sometimes overseen is if we are traumatized, things get mixed up. So, for example, we can still be a child inside, and a child thinks that an existential need is, of course, like safety, because we can't survive on our own. So we need our caretakers. We need someone to create that safety for us. And if we are still stuck, in the past, and we haven't processed those emotions from childhood, then we act today as if we are still that child. So, for example, in a relationship, we get rejected, and it's not just some need being met on the relational level of like, oh yeah, right now I'm like, I would love to feel love, but I don't. It's actually a like existential threat for the people, because we can't distinguish. We are like, oh, this is my mother right now rejecting me, this is not my partner, so I'm existentially threatened. And immediately we are in, yeah, we can go into freeze. It can be about money as well in our society, even though we are existentially like safe. But there's these different things, and things that we've learned from our parents in childhood, or we are still stuck there. And then that's also why it's so important to do the emotional healing, so we can distinguish these needs like a mature human being, like an emotionally mature, grown up person that knows, okay, this is just a relational level. I can take care of myself. I am safe, even though I feel like a feeling of rejection. And then you can hold it and be with your partner in that feeling of rejection, instead of going into old patterns of survival mode. And then your brain is not working in a productive, growing way. Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's super interesting, because I feel like in we talk about, like, I think healing is, I have my problems with the word healing, like, what, because it sort of implies that it's a process and then you're healed, I think. But I'm a bit split. I'm a bit split on that matter, because on the one hand, I think life will always be challenging, and that's something that Abraham Maslow also said. It's about solving. If you look at it in the and in the, if you call it problems or whatever needs that you have, if you solve these very primal, basic problems, then you can take on bigger problems that are not, you're not concerned all the time with these, yeah, with these very low level needs that you always have to fulfill. And then you can actually solve bigger stuff for your community, for example. You can pursue a path of spiritual growth. You can have, like, the door opens also to have peak experiences without having LSD. The door opens to have a deeper contact with your intuition, for example. All of this is happening, and I'm split, because I think life will always be hard to some degree. I don't think that life has to be stressful necessarily, but there will always be challenges. Our parents will die, our friends will die, we will age, we will hopefully not, but their sickness plays a role, like these existential things. So life will always be hard. So there's always a process of healing
Mhm.
something. But at the same time, I feel like healing can also point towards a destination, and that there is a moment on someone's healing journey that where he or she experiences, I think it's okay now. I think I think it's really like I think I can live now with a feeling of safety, and I can pursue bigger goals, and I feel so good about myself. Like my cup is so full with divine liquid that it spills over, and now I can channel that energy into supporting others, into being of service, and into starting creative projects, maybe start painting or writing poetry or whatever, to yeah to multiply that. And I was like, yeah, I find the question really interesting of when is that point reached. And I observe that it's we in the somatic circles we talk more, we don't talk about that fix, that star that we orient ourselves, or there isn't even a star. It's I feel like sometimes it's, yeah, like I said earlier, it's very much geared towards what is not working and what we need to heal. But there's no, to me, it's not clear what is there when that has successfully happened, you know. And I think for these people laying on their deathbed, we can understand and sort of reverse engineer what these things might be. You know, what makes a healthy, fulfilled, good life? Because these people, we maybe we can jump into the first point. People say like this is just like this is the sum of what most people say on their deathbed that they regret. And the first thing is, I wish I had the courage to live life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So I think the need behind that is something like authenticity, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I found it very interesting what you just said, this like infinite healing loop. I think it's a big topic, and you can identify with healing if you are not careful. You make your life about healing and thereby identify with something that can never be whole, and thereby also taking yourself the chance to ever heal because you've taken on a belief that you will be always the healing person. You will always be the one who
Yes.
heals. You will never be the one who is healed because you've taken that on, and it feels very comfortable. It feels very homey and nice for that little child inside of you that has the feeling it's not good enough. It has to do something, achieve something to be good enough. And this helps you. It's like, oh, great. Like I've recognized this, but what I don't notice is that I'm just repeating the same pattern. Just now I can justify it very well because am healing. I'm doing something for myself. Okay, but are you healing with the actual intention of being healed, or are you just enjoying the pattern of constantly finding something that's not good enough and then making progress, and finding something that's good enough and making progress? And I see it a lot. People sometimes they don't even want real solutions. They want solutions that work, but not fully work. That's their favorite. That's people's favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
just want to say that, add that to what you just shared. And then talking about authenticity, yeah, exactly. Authenticity, I feel like is so big, and so many people, especially in the healing world, in the bubble that we are in, and the like people becoming more conscious of themselves, they have an issue often with anger. Ashley talks about this a lot, and setting boundaries. And that is very related to being authentic, because if you can't set boundaries, if you can't stand up for yourself, you can't say no, that's when you can't be authentic. And that's when you live the life of others, like they say they regret, because you're like, I'm too afraid to get rejected ultimately, to stand up for myself and live an authentic life. I'm too afraid, and other things. I'm too afraid not to make enough money when I'm authentic. I'm too afraid not to find friends when I'm authentic. I'm too afraid not to have a partner, to lose my family. So again, it comes back to feeling like Gabor Mate talks about this a lot: authenticity versus connection. It's a lot about being less authentic, and buying with that less authenticity you buy connection, and you think you need that connection because you are still a child inside, and you think without connection, I die. So, because as a child, that was true. But now it's not true anymore, but you still do it. And you don't realize if you allow yourself to be authentic, yes, there will be a phase where you will lose people and you will lose connection, and it's hard and it's painful, and it will remind you of the pain from childhood. But on the other side awaits connections that fit in with your authenticity and success that fits in with your authenticity. And this is what a lot of success coaches talk about as well. And we can go into that, but this is just the emotional explanation of why I think people aren't authentic enough. And that's why emotional work will help them be more authentic.
Yes, and also what I get from what you say is just like it said here, I wish I had the courage to live life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So it also knowing that it takes courage to be authentic. There is this you need this healthy anger, this healthy inclusion of your sense of boundaries and what you want and what you don't want, because if you live life true to yourself, it's not a walk in the park. It's if you truly do and see and say what you think, then there's a good chance that people will not like that. But as you can see here, that trade-off works, because if you don't do that, and you know I'm I think we all do that all day long to some degree. We all betray ourselves and lie to ourselves, like in little or big ways. But I think what we all know is this feeling of our higher self or our conscience standing behind us with its arms crossed and saying, "That's not you. You don't think that. You don't want to do that. You actually want to do this, and you're gonna suffer if you decide to do that." And most of the time, it's true. And some people, and I like most people, are have not learned what it means to be authentic in the first place. And um, yeah, I think we could talk about this for so long. But it's also, maybe one other point on the topic of authenticity, because I'm also asking myself, what is authenticity? Because everyone is like, yeah, let's be authentic, and it's good and all. But then I read, is is the serial, like, if you go into a prison and there's a serial killer and you tell him to be authentic, he would probably kill you. So authenticity as a value in of itself is, you know I at least question that authenticity always every time is a good thing, because some people are it's good in some moments to be inauthentic, whatever that means. If that means you are not doing something that is in accordance with your impulses, then it can be good, because
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
It's David Manning calls it attunement. It's authenticity versus attunement. So it's important to be attuned as well. It's not the ultimate goal to always be authentic. You come into a room and there's some old people and they do some stuff that you find weird. Maybe you in that moment you're just attuned. You just want to be respectful, and you can see that. I see this childish authenticity sometimes in people who are like just learning it. It's like, at every moment I need to be fully authentic, and this person says something, and I'm gonna like make a big thing out of it and create like a whole like chaos in the room and like a lot of conflict and stuff. And you're like, really, is that really smart and worth it? Or are you just not able to contain that at the moment? So you just had to like spit out your like authenticity. It doesn't feel like a mature, balanced way of being authentic and also being attuned with your surroundings, because there's also value in that, and there's not always the highest value in the authenticity. So in that sense, I agree with you. And where I don't agree with you with the definition of authenticity means always following your impulses, because I think authenticity for me is something deeper. It's something we can sometimes only access if we unlearn patterns But maybe there it's just like a different way of defining authenticity. You could as just always doing for what your body or your impulses tell you, and don't hold them back, or don't hold back all your impulses, just be authentic. But I like the definition of authenticity of being finding your core, like finding yourself, being connected to the self, and then acting from that place. And then it's inauthentic to for you to, even though in that moment it feels like this is what I want to do, you could still call that inauthentic because it's coming from a very low level consciousness. It's coming from a very traumatized part, a very childish part inside of you. It's actually not, you weren't really acting authentically, or maybe that's more truthfully in that moment. But so I see these two different ways of defining authenticity.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I was bringing up that point because I have no answer to that. Like I always ask myself when I think about these things and feel into them, who is being authentic? Like what is this thing that is quote unquote authentically expressed, and from which part is it coming? And I haven't fully understood it and integrated it, but I think the answer is somewhere where you what where you were also were trying to find answers, which is in being close to the self and actually being differentiating between, like, basically the question is, who am I? Like who is, when I'm authentic, I need to know who I am, and parts work answers the question of who I am with, actually I am the self. Like I am the self, and I am the one who's experiencing life and experiencing all these different parts within me. So and I think the closer we are to that part, the better therapeutically also, and in terms of personal development, the process gets, because we have more choice, and we can choose then to be authentic instead of being I think that's a good point. Instead of being a victim of other parts that are pulling the strings of our life without us knowing it.
Yeah.
I think it's yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, I like that. And as you were speaking, I just put in the origin, the words origin of authentic into ChatGPT, and it's very interesting what it's saying. So, coming from more the Latin, authenticus, it means to be original or genuine or principle. But then it's borrowed from the Greek authentikos, and this combines autos, which means self, and hentes, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, meaning doer or being. So
Mm.
the self doer or the self being, or being the self, doing the self, which is exactly what we are just saying. Like, are you doing the self? Or you could also translate it as one who is true to themselves as well. So I think it aligns also with what we were saying.
Amazing. Shall we move to the
Yes.
second, the second regret of the dying is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard, which is um to me, like, it's obvious that, you know, this is a um this feels very, I mean, people have always worked and always worked hard, and probably worked harder in the past I don't know, 100 to 300 years than today, but it feels like this frequency of stress and being alienated from yourself is very apparent today. And I feel like this is also sort of pointing towards the a similar thing than the first one, which is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I hadn't made the choice of working all the time, and probably also not working for me because it brings me joy, because the work itself is fulfilling, but because the work was tied to an outcome that others, like that my family needed, that my parents expected of me, that society expected of me, um, whatever. And that is causing distress because people are like, I wasted my time doing something that I, in my heart, didn't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And to me, it's also a new factor, which is compensation. So you have a feeling inside of you of feeling unworthy. So you need to compensate it by working, by making money. You need to create a value because you don't see your inherent value. And so you miss out on the things that are really meaningful, which is probably a lot related to connection, feeling love, to love others, to be loved, to create meaningful interactions, um, meaningful moments. Take care of yourself, do what you love, and instead you work and you kind of pay with your time and with your effort for money. And then with that money, you think you can buy yourself something that is meaningful. But it's the search for meaning in the end, and you get it all wrong. You think you need to compensate and you need to exchange. It's like I exchange something not meaningful, work, to get something meaningful. And then there's all these people who tell you do work that is meaningful for you because so much time of your life you will, just you will you will have to deal with what you're working with. You will be at work. And yeah, it's really important to recognize that really ultimately life is about doing something meaningful. And are you exchanging time that it doesn't feel meaningful for you to do something meaningful? And if so, please think twice and and ask yourself if that's a good idea. And also, are you compensating something like all the time you put into your work? What are you trying to get? And is it really something that's lacking, or can you find it in other ways?
Yes, I feel like we're getting to a sort of a red thread that goes through all of this, and I feel like it's all pointing towards a belief of I'm not okay the way I am, and I either need to compensate for it or I need to um, divert from who I actually am in order to make other people happy. Um, and what I ask myself also in this second question is, people wish they hadn't worked so hard, but what is it? Like, let's imagine someone reads that and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, people regret having worked so hard, so I want to change something about my life, and I don't want to work so hard. I don't want to be that person that lies on his deathbed and is looking back and being in pain because it's this can never be changed. So he decides, okay, I want to change something. And what is it that is there instead of working hard? Like, what is making life um, meaningful instead of working? What do you think?
Yeah, as I said, I like this question. And as I said before, I think a lot is about relationship. And I think actually a lot is what biology is just creating, like for animals as well and for us as well. So, uh, reproduction, becoming a father, becoming a mother.
Yeah.
Like people, at least I'm not a father yet, but people talk about how meaningful this is for themselves. Being deeply in touch with your spirit, with yourself. Um, like you said earlier, you gave a session to someone, and the feedback was it was as meaningful as the birth of my children. Yeah, being in touch with your essence. People on psychedelic trips also report that this has been like one of the most profound, meaningful experiences of themselves. Why? Because they are in touch with love, with their truth. This is what religion is about. Religion, people say religion is here to give people meaning in a meaningless world. No, it points you to what's meaningful. It points you to your truth, like is things that move your heart, things that touch you deeply. Seeing
Yes.
the smile of a newborn, and this innocence, falling in love with someone and spending time with them and exploring and going through hard times and good times with them feels like meaningful. Having being in joy with your friends, also peaks, following pleasure at times, and peak experiences like sexual peak experiences or drugs or stuff like that, they can create meaning as well. That's why they are so addictive sometimes, some of them, because if you don't balance that with meaningful things in other areas of your life, you are dependent on the meaning that these things create for you.
It's beautiful what you say. Yeah. And that is I like the energy that our like this conversation is getting towards, because now maybe I would be curious if the listeners also pick up on that. But we just started talking about what makes life meaningful, and there's a whole, I feel like that it has this timeless quality of, it's actually, who am I without my healing journey? What is a good life? And it's so simple, and it's the little simple things that Jannick just shared, just looking into the eyes of your partner, hanging out with your friends and laughing, all these and all these beautiful but simple experiences are actually what make a good life. And I find that really touching, and want to add to that Viktor Frankl, he wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. One of the most, in German, it's Trotzdem Ja zum Leben sagen. He's a psychologist that experienced the Auschwitz camp. And he came up with logotherapy, which is a therapeutic approach that works with meaning, actually. And he found three roads to meaning. And I just want to briefly touch upon them. So he asked himself, especially in the concentration camp, because life was seemingly meaningless there. But there were some people who were um, rising above the suffering and the sheer bleakness and horror that was accompanying them day by day. And there were some people who were just, who were just still friendly, who still had a good word for someone that is in suffering, who had a sense of dignity. And he asked himself, what is it that what is it that gives these people a sense of stability? And he found out that it was meaning. That if you face unavoidable suffering, just like in Auschwitz, there's a deep mechanism that grips people and that fills their life with meaning, even if they confronted with death. So he asked himself, in these circumstances, what is a meaningful life? Like, what is meaning? And he found these three roads to meaning, which are creating a work or accomplish a deed, which means, there were, for example, in the camp, people who were scientists or artists, or even he himself. They wanted to write a book or publish a paper, publish music, poetry, whatever. And they said, I need to survive this because this is meaningful to me. So they built this inner resilience because they were like, this is the meaning of my life. I need to get through this. Like, I need to survive this. And this people who had this connection to their meaning were more prone to actually surviving these circumstances because their immune system started working in better and stuff like that. It's a bit complex, but the second point is experience something or encounter someone. That's also what Jannick just said. It's starting a family. People in the concentration camps had people that were waiting for them, that were like, I have to get through this. Like, even if I like, even if it's hard, like I have to survive this in order to meet this person, because being with that person is what gives my life meaning. But it can also be appreciating art or music or literature or nature's beauty. And I would also add to that, just like Jannick, feelings of having peak experiences, feelings of awe, feelings of contact with divinity and with spirituality and transcendence. And the last thing is the attitude towards unavoidable suffering. So if you're in a situation where suffering is inescapable and unavoidable, which is life, by the way, because like I said earlier, our parents will die, there will be suffering, but it's the attitude towards suffering that is that we have in our hands and that we are responsible for. So it's even finding a sense of purpose in the face of life struggles, such as, for example, service to others, or transforming the personal pain into growth, into resilience or empathy for others, and then completing the hero's journey and bringing that whatever gold you found in your own suffering to your family, to your community, to your friends, or into whatever business you have or creative piece that you um, that you are creating. That
Yeah,
was a quite we are this is a complex episode. I really like it.
exactly. I want to add one thing to the
Yeah.
last point is not I feel like not only attitude towards pain, but also death. It's
Yes.
I feel like the attitude and the relationship people have to death is highly related to how they live their life and how
Yes.
meaningful their life feels.
Yes. Yes. You speak on something really profound. It's yeah, this is I've this is a slightly synchronistic moment because I was this morning I was looking into how I can do work in a hospice in palliative care. I was working in a hospice already for like a few weeks, and it was absolutely amazing. And the things I experienced whilst I was working in a hospice were kickstarting my spiritual journey, if yeah, like personal development, like the journey to myself and the journey to understanding what life is. And I also found that people are sort of blissfully unaware of the fact that their life is limited, and most people don't have that on their radar. And that's also like the essence of these regrets that people have, or like most people don't know, hey, my time is limited, and it starts dawning on them in their 40s, and that's when the midlife crisis kicks in, because they were like, oh, I'm not everything that I could be. I missed out on things that I actually wanted to do, and they get sort of a second chance of rebirth. And they're like, okay, but you have the second life, half of your life still left, and that's when people can change stuff. But I totally agree with you, and I want to work in a hospice and work with dying people because it I feel like getting in touch with the process of dying more tells me something really profound about life. Like it just reminds me, and it's also a like with all of the gifts that I've gathered so far, I think the best service and the most, to me personally, fulfilling service that I can bring to the world is accompanying people in their last passage
Mm,
towards death.
mm,
So thanks for bringing that up.
beautiful.
There is there is three more. We can either talk about them now or talk about them in the next episode. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should talk about them in the next episode.
Yeah, it's really important because I feel like these are archetypal things that every human being, maybe in the whole history of humanity, is battling with. Like this is not like a modern day thing, but it's really profound. I think it tackles the core of what it means to be a human,
Yeah.
and I think it needs the proper place. Yeah.
Yeah, it needs time, and we want to be able to talk about each one of them in the length that we did for the first ones. And I love to like finding these similarities between the things. And I'm already noticing some as well. Like you could add to all of those sentences, you could start them with, I wish I had the courage to. Yeah, I wish I had the
Mm.
courage to not work so hard. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself. I don't want to spoil out the next ones, but yeah, you can add this, and it's always about being courageous, like having the courage to do something that you are not doing. And in German we say aus dem Fenster lehnen. I'm leaning myself out of the window too much with this,
What a strange
but I
phrase
feel,
in English.
yeah.
Why is he doing that?
Yeah, don't fall out of the window if you're leaning too much out of the window, but whatever. I don't even know if that's the correct translation. Um, it's because of fear and of shame and of guilt And these are the layers that are between your authentic expression, your authentic, emotions and actions, and where you're at right now. And so it's so essential to be able to process and go beyond shame and guilt and fear in this sense. And yeah, that's why this emotional work that we do is so important. That's why Ashley is sick today, because she's doing that, going through the layers of shame. If you've watched the last episode, you know what I'm talking about. So it's full circle.
Yeah, and I love what you said about courage. And then got reminded of the Hawkins scale of consciousness. Like, if you don't know that, just Google map of consciousness or scale of consciousness by David Hawkins. It's a scale of a hierarchy, basically, of emotions without being a hierarchy, like it often gets misinterpreted, but it's sort of a map of emotions. And courage is right in the middle after pride. And courage is sort of right at the border between the higher states and the sort of lower states,
I love that.
for the lack of a better word. Because if you step into courage, you can meet your pride, you can meet your anger, you can meet your desire. It takes courage to face that. So whenever I feel, for example, when I feel fear, for example, I can be like, oh no, I'm afraid. Or I can remember myself of, wait a second, I can step into courage now. And it needs courage for me to be with that fear. And if I do that, if I meet the fear courageously, if I meet the grief, the apathy, the guilt, the shame, the anger courageously, then I'll be able to go into a state of neutrality, which is a higher vibrating emotion according to this map, and I can start integrating that. So it's interesting what you said, because indeed it all takes, like, all of these things take courage
Yeah,
to integrate.
it's almost the sword of light, like the weapon of light that you are fighting your demons with, and it's very closely related to vulnerability. Being vulnerable, like opening up, even though it feels really scary and there's layers around it. You need the courage to be vulnerable, and you need vulnerability to get in touch with your loved ones, to be authentic, to maybe even not work so hard, but it's more the courage.
Yes. Well, that was
Okay,
amazing.
that's a heavy one. I love this episode so much. I hope you guys at home enjoyed it as much as we did talking about it. If
Yeah, it
not,
was
that's
probably
totally fine as well,
one
because
of my
I loved it.
favorites, one of my favorite. And I really enjoy also going towards the end of the year. And yeah, like, speaking of things that provide meaning, I think this podcast for all of us has been a beacon of meaning, and it's just great to always come back to this and each week meet up, even though it was a bit inconsistent for the last weeks. That's totally fine. Um, but yeah, approaching the end of the year, it's amazing. Maybe we do something like a year review or something like that in the next
Yeah.
episode. I don't know. That would
The
be
only issue is that people always are listening a few weeks later, so they didn't even notice that we didn't record
that's
for a
true.
few weeks now. But this is actually good, because this brings us closer to, like, the gap between when we're recording and when we're publishing gets smaller. This means that if we do a New Year's episode now, it will be very close to New Year's when you guys listen to it. So that's really nice.
Amazing.
Okay, I say goodbye. Please let us know in the comments how you liked it. What creates meaning for you? Are you interested in these kind of episodes where we talk about regrets of the dying? And subscribe to the podcast if you like it. Share it with a friend, and give us a review on the podcast platforms. We would love that. It helps us support the podcast and bring out this meaningful work that we are doing out into the world.
Yes, nothing to add to that. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening. It was a joy to put this out. And yeah, goodbye.
Bye bye.